All right, so we're now recording today's session. Again, welcome to our URI Neuroscience alumni. It's wonderful to have you back. So I want to start with some introductions before I hand it off to you, Patrick. So if the panelists could go around and just quickly say your name, where you graduated, your title and organization, and your preferred pronouns. So just have me, Claudia, you want to start?
Okay, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Claudia Santos. I got my PhD degree at URI in 2018. And my position now is I'm a clinical research specialist at Takeda Pharmaceuticals. And I think that's all.
Melissa?
All right. My name is Alyssa Zisk. Some of you here already know me because one of the things that I do is teach neurobiology at URI. I am also the AAC research team lead at AssistiveWare, and I am a project coordinator for the AAC Counts project with Communication First. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And May 2021, PhD neuroscience.
Fantastic. And I see that Allie joined us. So Allie or Nagar, do you want to go first?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, sorry for joining a few minutes late. I just had to hop off a meeting. Hi, everyone. My name's Allie. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a consultant and scientific advisor with IQVIA. I graduated with my master's in neuroscience from URI in 2018. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you. And last but not least.
Hi, hi everyone. I'm Nagar, and my pronouns is she, her, hers, and I graduated from Master in Neuroscience in 2021, August, and now I'm Research Associate 2 in Preclinical Department at Alcas Inc. Company.
Fantastic. And I know it said that Chris was going to join us, but he was not able to. So we have 4 lovely panelists today, and Patrick, take it away.
Yes, thank you. And as Kristen said, we're very excited to have everyone here today. So we'll kind of start with a softball question of post-graduation from URI, where did you start your career off, and how did you find yourself there? So kind of like your first career, first job post URI. Some of you I realize a little bit sooner than others, but where did you start and how did you get there? So I don't know if you want to start us off again, Claudia. I promise I won't go to you first every time, but if you want to start us off.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
So after I got my PhD, my first position was as a postdoc. I had to come back to Brazil because I'm Brazilian, and I got a postdoc in neuroscience. Actually, it was related also to clinical trials in depression. So my main focus was never to stay in academia. So I was actually a little frustrated to go to a postdoc because I always wanted to join a pharma company. So I struggle a little, but I'm here now. So I'm very happy for how my career led to what I wanted to be. I actually work as a consultant for IQVIA, similar to Alison, and that's the position I went to after my postdoc, and it was great to learn about other therapeutic areas. Actually, one thing I've been learning a lot now is that it's important to have the focus on neuroscience, of course, but when you work especially when you work as a consultant, or if you work for CROs and for pharma companies, they expect you to know a little bit of everything, and it's very challenging, but it's been great. And I think my PhD in neuroscience, although it was very focused, I did my PhD in Alzheimer's disease. It was actually very easy to learn about other therapeutic areas, and I think we are able to learn faster than than we expect. So it's been great.
Awesome, thank you. Allison, do you want to go next?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, actually, that Claudia makes a really good point too about how, you have this focus on neuro, but then sometimes you are kind of expected to just have a really broad range of knowledge base, and that's what I'm finding now. But having the background in neuro has been great. I didn't start out in this work. I actually, after I graduated, I taught for a semester. I did adjunct faculty. And then after that, I did a short contracted position in immuno-oncology. And then I found this work in consulting. And I found that I really enjoyed it. And even though not all of my work is neuro-focused, I liked having, the options of I can work on oncology for a few hours, and then, I'm in a rare disease for another few hours, and then I get some neuro sprinkled in, which is really nice. So my path was definitely not quite linear right after graduation, but where I've ended up, I still get to use the neuro background that I have.
And as a consultant, did you kind of seek that role out, or did a company come to you with your scientific background and knowledge, or?
It's a great question. I wasn't trying to get into consulting. I just kind of like fell into it. And the area that I am in is really interesting because some of us have scientific backgrounds, and that's really helpful. And then there are consultants that kind of have more of like a business background. And it's interesting to see the two kind of come together, because you need both to be successful. But I think I was more sought out for the scientific background that I have, because I think it is really, really helpful.
Sure. And then Alyssa, I know you finished up and then you kind of found yourself here, but you want to go into that a little bit?
All right, so when I finished, I was in a slightly tricky position for the job market in several ways. One, I was not sure until mid-January 2021 that May 2021 really was going to be the graduation date. And thus I got a late start on the academic job market. Also, pandemic. And then on top of that, the alignment between my research, my long-term research interests, the research that I did during my dissertation, and the types of jobs posted was fairly narrow. So I got some interviews, but I was not able to apply for that many positions that were a good fit within academia. None of them came through, but through my network, I had connections to several organizations, some are companies, some are nonprofits, in the area of augmentative and alternative communication. And the CEO of Assistiveware, where I now work, reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in working with some of their anonymously collected data, originally in the short term. That went well and has become what will be a longer term thing. You really never know what's going to show up.
That is for sure, definitely. And then last but not least, Nagar, do you want to talk about how you got here?
Yeah, sure. So this is my first job. I just graduated in August. So I've been in this job for now 6 months. And it's same as Elisa, it was kind of challenging at the beginning because it was right at the middle of pandemic. But and the second challenge for me was being international student. Some company didn't accept the visa visa thing. So that actually narrowed down my options, but still it was a lot of job opportunities for me. I was amazed at the beginning, I was like, I cannot get I cannot get into anything. But at the end, I got a lot of interviews and a lot of job offers. So it was kind of a great like experience going through that. And yeah, this is my first job, and I for like job applying for a job, it was mostly like updating my LinkedIn and also having connection with people, and also like that neuro background at URI, and also like working in the lab, which was protein like focus. And the skills I learned in that lab helped me a lot, that I could get different, like going through different approaches for my job offer, because I have a lot of different skills. So I could have like, I could apply for different type of jobs. And I ended up to the job I really like to do now.
Awesome. And so kind of that job that you really like to do, and for the panelists, can you describe a day in the life of your job? And we'll start with you, Nagar, because you like it so much.
Sure. So I always wanted to work as a like in R&D area. I really like bench work and I really like science. So when I applied for the job, I was looking for the job that I could do like those together and also be neuro-related and neurodegenerative diseases. So a job, like ideal job for me was to come to the lab and having my own project or collaborating with others, and like finish some project and be like, I don't know, be productive at the end. It just feels good to me. So my daily job now in Alcahes, it's I'm part of preclinical department, so I'm part of R&D. And what I do, it depends on project. So when we start a new project, we usually sit down at the beginning and make a proposal, like what we want to do. It's very straightforward. It's kind of different from academia that you go for yourself, but here is like you have a plan at the beginning, what really you want to do and what's the outcome. And then when you pass that process, you order your like reagents, and it's usually better from academia because there's a lot of money. So you don't need to worry about the money. And you order your reagents, and then you start your actual experiment. And I know for different like biotech company, it depends really on your team and how you contribute. But in my company, you could have your own project, which helps you to go through from beginning to the end and do different assays. So I'm involved in learning different assay and generate result. And also I presented to the research meeting, and also at the end, if there's good data, I could present it to even CEO and like bigger like a population, which is great. I really like that. And yeah, that's kind of, and the daily is 9 to 5, sorry. It's very flexible and it depends on your experiment. So yeah, that's it.
Great. No, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Claudia, how about you? What's your
Sure.
daily life like?
So my day, I'm based in the office, but I have I work pretty much as a project manager. I would say like a study manager. So I have a lot of different studies, and I follow this since the start. So my job is very focused on the beginning of the studies. So review the protocol, discuss with the medical affairs team and also the KOLs, the key opinion leaders of each area, and start with the protocol. And I also almost like a defense. I do a defense of the protocol for my company and make sure that all different teams agree with that and that they will allocate the resource to continue the study. And then I start engaging with the CROs normally that will conduct the study. So it's a very scientific, but at the same time, it's very administrative position. I have to make sure also the budget it's going to work for the whole study and the payments are done at the correct point. So that's one thing that you can't really escape if you're going to pharma. You have to to do pretty much everything. I had even to review like contracts and like work with legal to make sure everything makes sense for us. So this is very challenging, like having to do this administrative part. But the nice thing is like when I'm doing a trial, I get to go to the site centers and participate in the study initiation visit and all the other steps. And also when the results arrive, I'm part also that will visualize the results at firsthand and start working on the publication. So I follow the study the whole time, since the beginning until the publication.
Awesome. Thank you. And Alyssa, how about you, your daily life?
So this depends significantly on whether it is a day that I teach neurobiology or a day that I do not teach neurobiology, because of course, class prep is a significant chunk of time. For a day that I do not teach neurobiology, because that's the part that's my students would be less familiar with, be it seeing the neurobio all the time. I get up, I check the internal messaging system for assistiveware, which will have a bunch of things in it because they are based in Amsterdam, and it is therefore afternoon for them already. The bulk of their workday has happened while I was asleep. I will see if anything new has been added to my to-do list since the prior night. If yes, then I will deal with those. And if not, then I'll check in with my team members and I will start work on whatever my research projects for the day are, which it could be related to analyzing language use data collected from augmentative and alternative communication apps that the company makes. It could be related to the survey on preferred terminology about augmentative and alternative communication that they are currently running to find out how do people actually talk about this topic. It could be related to the academic collaborations that we're working on the side of improving access to effective communication and improving the research on what actually leads to effective communication. So I have a good bit of overlap in what I do every day with like, I think it's similar to what a primary investigator does, except that I am at a company instead of at a university.
Gosh. And so being an international company, your hours, they fluctuate a little bit. Like, do you work later, I'm assuming? And
so I'm an independent contractor, and outside of set meetings, I make my own hours. I actually work fairly early in the day when possible, which both increases my overlap in working hours with the Netherlands.
Gotcha.
And is good for the fact that I'm a morning person. I like the morning.
Yeah, definitely. And then Allie, how about your daily life at your job?
My day-to-day is very variable. Some of the day I'm actually on the other side of what Claudia does. So I'm part of a CRO and we do a lot of that work. So we are often also looking at those protocols or trying to draft those protocols. It is sometimes a bit of the administrative stuff that Claudia was talking about too, but I try really, really hard not to touch that at all because I don't like it at all. But it can be, drafting study documents. If we're looking to execute a study with patients, it could be talking to patients, it could be talking to KOLs, it could be analyzing the results of those conversations. and then, putting those results into a report that's then going to go to a regulatory agency or to your payers and insurance companies. So it's very variable. A lot of my time is spent in meetings and emails and all that good admin and study building steps, but it really depends on the day.
Nice. Yeah, we're not escaping admin, unfortunately. I think that's all stops for sure. So I'm sure you were all extremely strong students and did everything correct, but is there anything from your undergrad or graduate programs that you remember that you wish, like, God, I wish I had improved on that or had implemented something else? So kind of coming to mind for that. Anyone want to take that one first?
I could go first.
Okay, awesome.
I feel it's very depends on the pathway you want to choose for your future. You need to use the resources that you have in university because there's a lot of resources and it's available for you. So you could just go around and choose it. Like for me, because my job is a little bit different from what I've done for my master. I wish I had that, like there was opportunity. They provide you in neuroscience program to go and experience different labs and different techniques. So if I go back, I would love to just stand by in another lab and see like what they're doing, that the skills they have, and I could just touch and base and see what's going on and just use that opportunity to learn. That's the only thing I feel I wish I'd done it. Still, I got a lot of job opportunities with the skills I have, but still, the only thing I regret why I didn't use the opportunities I have the most. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely, I think Nagar is kind of talking about maybe Neuro 591, rotating through different labs or classes,
Exactly.
seeking out, a faculty member who works in something else.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Claudia, do you have any thoughts on that or?
Yeah, well, I graduated a long time ago. I don't really remember the classes.
And that's okay too.
Numbers.
That's okay too. Yeah.
Well,
No
it's not
worries.
really a regret, but I think it's very similar to what Nigar said because I started doing lab research. So my first semester I spent on the lab, and I actually had the chance to go to Rhode Island Hospital and start working in my research itself. That's how I started working on clinical trials. But I think it was actually really nice because the first semester was good to learn a little bit more about the lab life and make sure what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And also I spent a lot of time at URI. So this way was really nice to get to know more people and all the other students. So I think it's important to rotate. Even though you already know what you want, I think you should always look for faculty members and talk about their projects and see if there's something that you would like to get to know, even not stop what you're doing, but maybe do a research project or something with them.
For sure. And then our faculty member, so Alyssa, any thoughts on anything you could do differently or that you wish you had done differently, or advice to students, especially teaching right now?
So I don't so much have things that I would do differently as much as I have things that I did for good reasons, and I still think it was the right choice, but I also recognize that it made things more complicated. My research interests, like I'm interested in augmentative and alternative communication. I'm interested in autism. I'm interested in neurodivergent conditions broadly. My dissertation research was on brain-computer interfaces for people with ALS, and it was technically adjacent to all of those things, but it was definitely not addressing them in the direction that I wanted to continue addressing them in post-PhD. And there were reasons that I didn't want to do those same directions during my during my dissertation that I was intending to go in later, but it did mean that I had to figure out how to switch. So trying several different things is good. Recognizing whether or not the direction that you want to go in after college is a direction that you also want to go in during college, it's an actual good question to think about, because if the answer is no, you'll need to figure out how to make the switch after, but you can do it. It can be done.
No, for sure. Yeah, sometimes it's just learning while you're doing it. I don't want to do that anymore. And then Allie, any thoughts, or do you want me to ask the next question?
I think honestly, I would say the same things that everyone has said so far, trying to learn as many skills as you can that can be translatable. But also, yeah, taking the time to really reflect and think like, do I like what I'm doing? And if not, how can you pivot? How quickly, and how can you use what you've already learned to help you with that pivot? But broadly, the same thing that everyone else is saying.
Yeah. So kind of talking about those transferable skills and, you know, applying to different positions, are there any kind of work experiences, internships, or just overall experiences that you had, whether it was at your undergraduate or graduate level, that, you know, felt like, you know, you thought made you more competitive or helped you get into a position that you're in now?
That's a good question. I think for me, I looked at some of the skills that I had learned in like kind of a different lens. So the job that I had previously is very similar to the one that I had now, but when I applied for that job, I really highlighted the qualitative work that I had done in my master's degree in writing a paper. Like I was like, I wrote this paper, I contributed on other papers because I knew that that's what they were focusing on, was like, who can write well scientifically. So they, not that they didn't care that I could run a Western blot, but like, that's not really what was helpful for them. And even though my resume says that I can do that, that wasn't what I was trying to highlight. So I think just having those translatable and transferable skills is what really helped me the most.
Yeah, no, and I think definitely you kind of bring up a good point of just kind of looking at job descriptions, what is required of the person, and the fact that, you know, you set that goal within your position to, okay, hopefully I can get a publication or something like that. So what are objectives or goals that you can set within your current, you know, role now, whether you're a master's student or maybe you're an undergraduate just trying to get some research, you know, if you're doing Neuro 410, for instance, in undergraduate, what's a tangible goal that you can reach by the end of the summer? And that way you can brag during your, you know, interview or on your resume that I did X, Y, Z. Claudia, any thoughts as to things you can do?
Yes, so if you're planning to go to pharma, I think the best way to start is if you do an internship in pharma. They offer a lot of opportunities, and also you can start as a postdoc. Some pharmaceutical companies have a postdoc position available if you graduated from a master or, well, from a PhD in this case. But it's a great way to get to know how the system works, and also to make sure that if that's what you want. And also it's the best way to do some networking. We have a lot of interns at Takeda, and I really like to follow their career and make sure if they are actually following this path. Sometimes they go back to academia or something like that, but it's interesting to see how they follow different pathways. And when I was doing my PhD, I actually started working as a research assistant at the Rhode Island Hospital, and it was a great introduction to clinical research, and that really helped me to get my first position, because although I was studying for about 4 years, I already had experience. And that's something that is very difficult when you're looking at the job descriptions. They say you have to have at least 5 years experience in clinical research, 5 years experience in pharmaceutical companies. Sometimes they say like they don't want anybody that doesn't have previous experience in pharmaceutical company. So that's a good way to have something in your CV.
Mhm. No, for sure. And I think you brought up a really good point as well, just about mentorship, especially for our undergraduate students who are here today. You know, sometimes students say, oh, I don't really know any of my faculty. It's really important to know your faculty, talk to your faculty, bond with them, you know, form relationships, because those are the people that are going to be supporting you. And Nagar, do you have any thoughts or ideas about?
I think everyone mentioned everything, but because my background is kind of different from other people, so I changed my major from undergrad to grad. And I believe I had like what made my application competitive. It was all the skills I learned through grad. So it's because it gave me the opportunity to learn the skills, like technical skills, like as Ali mentioned, Western blot, like those bench skills, as well as writing skills, which was writing paper and also presenting the data, and like being like a complete package of application. It just made me competitive like to other applicants from other university. So that was yeah, I think that was a great opportunity to have it.
No, for sure. And I think unfortunately, you know, the graduate degree is becoming the new undergraduate degree. So I think, you know, a lot of our students already are pursuing that as well.
So for undergrad, as I noticed, so there are a lot of opportunities to being RA or research assistant, as Claudia mentioned, and that's a great like position for after undergrad, because it's kind of give you the opportunity to experience industry level research. At the same time, you could decide what really you want to do after. You want to go back to grad school, or you want to stay in industry and get promoted to like next level. So it's a lot of like open opportunities after that position. So for undergrad, it's always good to have it.
Sure. And then Alyssa, did you want me to stay on this one? Go to the next question. Do you have anything to add you'd like to add? Hold on, you're muted.
I think we can go on to the next question.
Okay. So can you talk about what you find, you know, most rewarding, maybe most challenging in your current role?
So I'm fairly new to my current role, but what I find very rewarding is that most of my work is research work that provides foundations for either improving access to tools for communication for people with disabilities, or about making those tools better, or making it so that we are more able, so that we discuss these tools in ways that people will actually understand what we're saying, which is helpful because I use these tools myself some of the time. I had that listed as an accommodation as a graduate student, and I think I can only think of one professor who understood without demonstration what my accommodations actually meant, which means that we're not talking about them in a way that's easily understandable yet.
Yeah.
And so the terminology survey, for example, is relevant for a lot of people, but I have a personal understanding of that relevance, and it's
Yeah.
like
No, that's gotta be.
because I also use these tools some of the time, I have a
Mhm.
very strong understanding of why my research is important.
Mhm.
And because I have PhD in neuroscience and a trained researcher, I have the experience to work on these questions rigorously.
For sure. That's got to be very rewarding. Allie, how about you?
Yeah, I think the rewarding pieces of my job are the pieces that keep me in the work that I do.
Mhm.
So what I do is I help to bring the patient voice actually into drug labels. And we do that through, interviewing patients, collecting data, all that good stuff. And I think it is really meaningful to hear patients talk about what is meaningful to them,
Mhm.
and then to be able to reflect that back to our clients and say, like, this is what patients say are important, and how can you best address these problems, or how is the product you have or you're working on addressing these issues. I think that that's really great to hear. And sometimes, I don't get to do that all the time, but the days when I have interviewed a patient and they say, thanks for taking the time. This is, I'm in a rare disease. This is really helpful. It's good that like this information is getting out there. That you really can't beat that. It's
Yeah.
a good day to be a scientist on those days.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And Claudia?
I think the most rewarding part of my job is I get to work also managing the programs that we offer, drugs for patients, for example, post-study medications. And since I'm from Brazil and I know like other countries, I don't think it's a big issue in the US, but other countries have a lot of difficulty in access to medicine. And it's really nice to be part of it. I know I'm just managing, but we do our best to make sure and nobody is missing the medication once they need. So that's very rewarding and something I can do with my job. So that's great.
Yes. Very good. And Nagar?
Yeah, I'm also pretty new to my job, but the most rewarding things for me, it's when there's target for like a treatment. It could be a target that goes to clinical, and you could see like the result of your work in patients, which is very like it feels very good to have that. And the most challenging thing is sometimes in industry, some projects they don't work, and you just let it go. And you get sometimes attached to the project, and you feel like, oh, you need to work more, but you just need to let it go. That's only, I think, challenge could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for informing us about your jobs and what you've learned through school and whatnot. We wanted to open it up now to students to see if they had any questions for you in your current roles, or about your experiences in undergrad or graduate school. If people have questions, if they want to raise their hand. Kaya, awesome. You want to go first?
Hi, I'm Kala.
Kala.
So my question is for Alyssa specifically, but might also apply to some of the other panelists as well. So my question is whether or not you made it known to the employers to which you were applying. Did you let them know about your personal connection to the research? And do you think that made you a stronger applicant? Would you recommend connecting your personal experience to your professional experience?
Ooh, this is complicated. So
That's why I asked, because sometimes, you share something that like they could look as a negative, but I don't know.
yeah, so on one side, it depends a little bit on what your personal connection is. Because if your personal connection is a marginalized identity that gets discriminated against in hiring, then that's a risk on its own. In my case, my personal connection is that I'm disabled in this way. So is it a risk? Yes. I chose to take that risk because I have learned from experience that the places that would decide not to hire me on that basis would be hostile working environments if I was able to sneak in by not telling them. And I don't really want to be there anyways. The other thing that makes it complicated is discussions of bias and neutrality of research. The position that I hold is that there is no such thing as an unbiased researcher. The things that can be done is that you can own what biases you come in with, and you can do your best to ensure that the research field has some variety in terms of what biases may exist. That is, a researcher who has never met an adult AAC user but has worked with children who use AAC is going to come in with different biases than the parent of a child user is going to come in with different biases than a parent of an adult user is going to come in with different biases from an adult user, and declaring that only one, and if you're only declaring one of these groups to be a problem, then I'm concerned about how you got to that conclusion. If you're saying that all four need to be aware of where they're coming from, then I agree.
Any other panelists? No, thank you. That was very good. Any other panelists want to weigh in on that? It's okay if not. Any other questions for these panelists?
I think I have one.
Awesome.
How do you handle moments when you stumble? Like when you're like, you think that you have a focus, but then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I fell into something I really didn't expect. And now I got to pick myself up and go in a new direction. Like, how do you deal with that?
I think I can answer that. I think you have to not be afraid of changing directions. It's important to try. Like I did try a postdoc because that was the opportunity that was what people expect when you get a PhD, I think. And I knew since the beginning I didn't want it, but I tried, and once I was sure, I discussed with my advisor and said, no, I don't think I want that. I think I want to try something different. And you try. You have to think that the sooner the better. You know, it's better to just take the lead and try. It's really hard to change positions once you gone through a lot of experience in your career. Once you get like a higher position, it's really hard to go back, and that's going to be the case if you change dramatically positions. Inside my company, we have a really nice program that we receive opportunities from completely different areas to try, but that's the main thing. It's really hard to change because I cannot go back on my career. So I'm a specialist. I can only get manager positions. So for example, if I want to try something completely different, if I want to go to human resources, for example, I will have to apply for a human resource manager position. And I don't think I could do that because I have no experience. So I think it's better to always move positions earlier, because after that, you have to know that you're going to go back
I also could kind of answer this question if I understood it correctly. So I would say if you're, because I changed a lot, like I changed my major to grad, and then my focus has been changed into my job. So as a graduate student, I was mostly doing in vitro, but now I'm doing in vivo experiment. So I would say like it's hard, but if you're open to learn, just keep telling to yourself, I'm learning. I'm learning new skills. I'm learning new stuff. And this is good because it makes you at the end to be a very competitive applicant, and you get separated by others because you know more than other people, because you have that experience from before, you experience it now, and people love to see you are learning. So like when you're passionate about something, they don't really care like how much. It depends on people on the job, but if they are good people, they really want your passion. And if you're passionate to learn new skills, you want to change your focus, as always, welcome. Yeah.
I'm going to jump in here and ask a question. So I'm Lisa Wyant, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the director of the neuroscience program, the INP here at URI. And there are a number of undergraduate students here. So they will be graduating with a BS. They're not going to have their master's or their PhD like all of you. So I was hoping you could speak to whether you see a role in your current position for an undergraduate. So as soon as coming out of school with a BS, what type of position might they have in your field? And thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Lisa. I could answer that question because my coworkers are all undergrad in neuroscience. So there are research associate position for sure in biotech companies. So the first thing they could apply is research associate, and depends on your resume and your skills and how much you worked on in your undergrad. You could get different levels of research associate 1, 2, or 3. It depends on your experience, how much you have the skills. Also, you could apply for associate scientist in different companies. So it depends on the level of each companies in biotech area. But in my company, as a start for undergrad in neuroscience, is a research associate, and then goes to the scientist, associate scientist and scientist for next levels.
Yes, in pharma, it's very similar actually. And most clinical research associates, they have a bachelor. And so that's a great start. Sometimes they start as CTA, so clinical trial assistant, but you can also start as a clinical trial assistant, I think, once you are an intern. And it's a great way to get to this kind of position because I'm pretty much inside medical affairs. But there are other opportunities too, but not in my area. It's as a clinical research associate.
I think.
Go
ahead, Patrick.
Sorry, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to add on. I think, yeah, those opportunities are available and they look different depending on the organization. So with the group that I'm with, I think that would be possible as like an analyst or a research associate. But that title is going to look different at different organizations for sure.
Thank you. And then Elian just asked a question about receiving an undergraduate assistant position. And Alyssa wrote back, so you can see that in the chat. Did someone else have something to add? We have any other maybe final questions for the panelists today?
Yeah, I would like to ask a question.
Yeah, Jose.
So Ali, as a master's student, what did you have to learn after your master's for your current position? Or what were you like struggling with the most?
Oh man. I don't want to say a lot, but it was, I think between like my master's and now, a lot of the skills that I learned were like on the job. how to, like, sounds silly, but like build a good PowerPoint deck, like how to talk to clients, how to do all that stuff. And you learn that by doing. And it's not something that like necessarily you're going to get in the master's degree. It's just kind of a learn by doing thing. I think another thing that I started with in the master's program was there's like a basic stats class, which is great if you like stats, and I don't. And I wish that I had been, had taken more classes that were better for me, because I use that like quite a bit in my job. And I would like transparently be better at my job if I was better at stats and I had a better understanding. So I think the stats and just like general good business presence are things that I sort of built on after my graduate degree, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Well, at this point, we just want to thank our panelists. So if you want to give them a little bit of an applause, or thank you all so much for coming today. We really appreciate it. Kristen, did you have a poll or anything you wanted to do?
Do Ashley.